Hello and welcome to another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. I'm your host, Chad Marshak. My special co-host is Sarah Mansfield, also of Body Symmetry.
Hello.
We are in my humble abode, in my kitchen. I get to clean up this mess after the fact, but we want to talk about nutrition. What do you eat? People come to us every single day and they ask us, I don't know what to eat. I'm confused on what I should eat. I read things in the media, I see things online in magazines, in the newspaper. I'm constantly confused. And that's a common quandary. People have problems. They don't know what to eat, and really, more importantly, they don't know when to eat.
Yeah, how much the amount of food to eat. We get pushed with a lot of supersized portions and things like that. New diets coming out all the time. One tells you more carbohydrates, one tells you more proteins. So yeah, there's a lot of confusion out there.
Right. And I know personally, I've been eating the same way for probably close to 20 years now. What I've been putting into my body essentially over the last 5 or 6 years is primarily about 60 to 70% organic foods. We've talked about organic foods and the benefit of organic foods. It's not feasible for a lot of people. A lot of people who are watching this program are on a tight budget. It's hard to make ends meet, and let alone go out and spend 25 to 30% extra on something that's organic. It's difficult for them. You can do it. You can create a food plan that's affordable, though, for most people. What I consume in a day typically costs me less than this. If you can count my fingers, I'm not supposed to say actual dollar figures on this particular program. However, it's cheap. It's cheaper than going out to eat even for lunch. A lot of times you spend that much on one lunch. If you take the time to go to the store on a relatively frequent basis, every 2 to 3 days if possible, then you can do this. You can put a plan together, you can implement it, you can start living a healthy life by consuming things that are actually good for you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the nice thing about that too is when you eat foods that are higher quality and better tasting, then you're more satisfied and you're not likely to have your meal and then kind of look for something else. You're kind of craving something else. And those things add up too, monetarily, calorically, both those ways. So I believe it's more of a quality over quantity type of discussion there. So I think the extra money that you would spend on organics, picking and choosing what you want to spend that money on, you're getting better price per nutrient than you would be on all of the kind of so-called genetically modified foods or the filler foods, processed, all that stuff.
That's exactly right. Now, today we have a lot of different examples for people to see, and as you can see here on the table, we have a kind of a smattering of things. And I've got actually some things that I wanted to share with people, kind of give them an idea of the types of foods and the quantity of food that I consume in a day, which essentially doesn't change a whole lot. Breakfast, and that's a big one for most people, and people don't understand oftentimes the importance of breaking the fast, thus the name breakfast. You've been asleep for 8 hours or so. If you go to bed at, say, 10 o'clock at night and you had your last meal, say, a lot of people eat maybe 6:30 at night, maybe they have a little snack at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, and then they're off to bed at 10 o'clock, and then they don't get up until the next day, say 6:30. A lot of people don't even eat breakfast.
Well, they say they don't really feel like eating at that point, and I think there's lots of different reasons. What did you eat the night before? You've gone 8 hours, you haven't eaten. I think a lot of that is thirst in the morning, you're dehydrated. So, everybody looks for that kick of coffee. And if you're feeding your body the way you should wake up feeling refreshed, because that's what sleep's about, is kind of replenishing everything and rebuilding. So if you feel sluggish when you wake up and you need coffee, you're basically starting that whole cycle over and over again, where you're not going to be able to get out of it and get to a healthy state and live your fullest. So, but breakfast, you definitely need more than the average. Grab the breakfast bar. That's kind of the candy bar in disguise.
Right.
Most people are very carbohydrate intensive at breakfast. They tend to do maybe a whole grain cereal if they're thinking about healthy, or if they're not thinking about it, it's more of a sugar cereal. Maybe a banana, maybe juice, and you really need a balance of the nutrients, protein, fat, and carbohydrate in a breakfast. So we've got a good example of that here.
So an example for me personally, when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I make myself a protein shake, and I usually mix it with water. It's usually whey protein. It looks something like this. I get it out of a canister. I fill about 10 ounces of water in this little plastic shaker bottle. I get out my scoop here. I put 1 scoop of whey protein, which is equivalent of 24 grams of whey protein.
So is this because you have a hard time, like it's not feasible in the morning to make like a chicken breast, or to make, is this more of a convenience thing?
It's more of a convenient thing for me, convenience thing for me.
Plus it's a way you can definitely measure how many grams of protein you're
I know exactly how many grams I'm getting in the morning. In addition to that, I usually have granola. Because I work at 6 a.m. most days of the week, I'm usually eating at 5:30, so a lot of times I'm eating in my car on the way, which is convenient because I'll throw 1 cup of granola, which is just pretty much just oats and a few blueberries, into a little Tupperware container. I throw a little bit of organic milk on it, about a half a cup.
One thing to remember about granola is that it's not all created equal. So you want to make sure that you read the label of your granola. There's fat content in granola, and sometimes that's not all a bad thing because you can get the nuts and some of the better oils. Again, organic, much better, naturally occurring oils as opposed to all the trans fats in the processing. But with, you have to kind of take some time to comparative shop and read the labels to see what you're getting. And
typically I'll follow that up with maybe I'll have anywhere between 8 to 10 walnuts. Or I'll have, people are going to laugh probably, that's okay, I don't mind, krill oil tablets or cod liver oil, which is, I try to ingest about a tablespoon roughly, which is equal to 14 grams of fat. Now, I'm not fat phobic. I think fat serves as a, it has a definite purpose, and fat is misunderstood in our society. It is our friend. It does all kinds of things for your body that we need. It helps to keep insulin levels in check. People consume way too many refined carbohydrates, and because of that,
your sugar off.
That throws everything off. There was the most recent information. I was listening to NPR last week. I was reading some literature, saw some stuff online. Last year, all 50 states' obesity rate did not go down, and 19 states actually went up. So we're doing something wrong. So again, the purpose of this program today is we're trying to give you ideas of what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. And ideally, the first thing you need to do when you roll out of bed is consume some protein of some sort, get a healthy low glycemic carbohydrate. Let's talk about the glycemic.
Glycemic is basically how easily a carbohydrate is absorbed. Carbohydrates are basically energy for your body. So it all gets converted to glycogen, which goes into your muscles, it goes into your bloodstream, blood glucose. And so a carbohydrate, let's say of a high sugar, like a white bread or carrots, I think are high. Corn, of course, is just a grain, it's a sugar. So those get absorbed rather quickly if they're consumed by themselves. So there's the whole balance issue of you need fat and protein to kind of slow that down, more of like a time release energy.
Right. So after I eat this, then I'm monitoring when do I eat my next meal. So if I'm eating at 6 o'clock in the morning, a little bit before 6, then ideally most people need to eat about 4 hours later, approximately 3.5 to 4 hours later. I don't care what you eat. Typically you're going to notice I'm feeling kind of hungry, or I'm a little lethargic, or gosh, I'm ready to eat something. All right, what do you do then? And that's a question. What do you snack on? What is a mini meal?
You don't want to go to the vending machine. There's nothing good there.
The vending machine is not where you want to go. Some ideas, and I'll show you what I eat, exactly what I eat every day, but some ideas would be something like...
Good old rice cakes. They have a bad name.
They have a bad name.
They're good.
Well, what would you put on them?
Yeah, you can make these pretty tasty. You can spread natural peanut butter, or there's lots of other butters. Some people have peanut allergies, or they're around kids that do. You can get cashew butter, soy nut butter, sunflower seed butter, I think is one that someone told me was really good. So any of those. In your rice cakes, basically, if you look at this, the total carbohydrates of this is 16 grams, but sugar really is 0.
It's 0.
There's no extra sweetening on it, and again, it's a taste issue. But I think the more you eat this way, the more your taste buds kind of become adapted to a better way of eating. And then when you go back to what you used to eat, you almost start kind of overwhelmed by either the sweetness of it, any of that kind of just I call it plastic food. It just doesn't taste right. So, but it may take a while for you to develop that. But I think overall you'll feel so much better that you'll want to do that.
This is easy to do. When you go to work, you can take a tablespoon or two of peanut butter, plop it on your rice cake, throw it in a baggie, take it to work. That would serve as a good snack.
Doesn't need refrigerated.
Does not need refrigerated. Doesn't need heated. Doesn't need heated. Easy to do. So that is an alternative. Another alternative would simply be to down some dried fruit. For example, maybe, when I say dried fruit and how much do you eat? Maybe a quarter of a cup of dried fruit, which would be maybe about
4 of those.
This many.
Those are apricots?
These are apricots unsulfured. I know they don't look like they're apricots. They don't have sulfur on them. That's what real dried fruit's supposed to look like.
And let me tell you, they taste a lot better than other dried apricots.
Absolutely. And then maybe an eighth of a cup of nuts would be fine, either walnuts or almonds. You know, I stock up on Planters peanuts. I don't mind the salt, it's not that big of a deal, but I'll take a half cup of serving of Planters nuts, and I'll put them in my little Tupperware thing. This is a half cup container. I'll fill that halfway full, all right, of nuts. It's about 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces of nuts. I put it in my little container here. And then that's my fat serving. I'll take yogurt, I'll put it in a Tupperware, usually about a cup of yogurt, and it looks, I don't buy the candy colored Trix Yoplait, which to me is
you gotta read your labels there. A lot of times, like, people go for low fat yogurt. Well, look at how they make up for the fat being gone by taste. They put sugar in it.
They put sugar in it.
You can sweeten it yourself. I think you put in some not dried cherries, but what did you put?
I actually take some cherry preserves and I put like a teaspoon in there, which has about 5 grams of sugar, which is 1 teaspoon of sugar is equal to about roughly 5, 6, 7 grams. Mm-hmm. And so that's part of, again, my meal, my snack number 2 or meal number 2, which is at 10 o'clock. So I'll have another whey protein shake, a cup of yogurt, nuts, and then usually I'll also have a piece of fruit, like an apple or a pear with that. So that's at 10 o'clock.
You know, and that sounds like a lot of food, actually. But when you factor in your lifestyle, you're physically active most of your workday.
Right.
So you're burning more calories. So say I'm working in an office situation where basically I'm sitting. Do I need that much for a snack? Probably not. But the nice thing is, and especially with those peanuts, if you can plan ahead a little bit and control your portions, you know that this, XYZ, this is my snack today, and I've got the portions. I don't have the big, Planters peanuts thing in my desk, so I don't just keep going and keep going, because that's everybody's worry about peanuts or any kind of nuts as a snack, is that they tend to kind of overeat them or mindlessly eat them. Exactly.
So limit it to like 2 handfuls of nuts. This is what a handful of nut looks like, okay? It looks like that, all right?
You got it.
All right, that would actually serve as a good fat source right there. That, an apple, and a handful of nuts. You've got a little protein, you've got some fat, and you've got a little sugar from the fruit. There's a mini meal right there for you, okay? What do you do for lunch? And that's a question. I'm usually on the fly. A lot of people don't have time. I think that people should try to focus more on making time in the evening to get their food. Every night I prepare my food for the following day. I know what I'm going to eat, and when I come home in the evening, I'll make my evening meal. But if I'm on the fly, what do I need to do? What can I do that's easy?
Well,
go ahead. Nope.
I think if you know the basic principles of what nutrition your body needs, then you can be in any environment and make the right choices. Right. Whether you have a business lunch where you have to order off a menu, or whether you have to, make up maybe go to a grocery store deli and get some some things there. Just, you know, as long as you know the balance that you need and the nutrients that you need, then I think you can make those decisions at that point if you're on the fly.
And I think the basic rule of thumb, wherever you are, whether you're eating at home or whether you're eating out, is to, when you order an item, you're eating an item, the item should have one ingredient in it. For example, chicken has nothing but chicken in it. Mm-hmm. Spinach has nothing but spinach in it. A yam is nothing but a yam.
So
you know, a bean is nothing but a bean. Yeah. Not 50,000 things in it. And you buy a box of cereal,
oh boy,
and you've got it loaded with 50 different things. Buy one of the little tricks yogurts that you give your kids sometimes, and look on the back of it. You've got FD&C blue number 9. You've got FD&C yellow number 8. You've got
you know, an interesting thing I read about that is that because sometimes I'll read the label and it will say natural flavoring.
Right.
And I'll think, natural. And so I read a little bit more on that, and there's certain amounts of different chemicals or additives, preservatives, that if they're within a certain amount, and they're called generally regarded as safe. So if they're under that umbrella of the generally regarded as safe, then they don't have to be specifically named, but they put them under that natural flavoring. So it's not really natural. So you even kind of get confused by that too. But you just basically, you know, that's hard to follow. Natural flavor, you think, well, you know, I can't trust anything on that label, but you know what? You can trust the label of this because
that's all it is.
This is naturally occurring.
This is a beet. You know, guess what's in it?
It's a beet.
Exactly. Right?
They haven't put any preservatives, and we won't even get into the whole growing issue with that.
Any type of fruit. You know, a piece of fruit is a piece of fruit. A vegetable is a vegetable. It doesn't have 50,000 things in it, all right? You don't have to worry about what's in it because you know what's in it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't need a label, not necessary.
More importantly, your body knows what's in it. So there's not these foreign things that are coming into your body, and your body's trying to kind of decode them to figure out how to metabolize, how to use them as nutrients. You know, there's a lot of fatigue in your body when that happens. And
it's almost like a computer virus. You know, when a computer gets a virus, it doesn't know what to do with it. You know, sometimes it slows everything else down, it bogs it down, you've got to get rid of it.
It locks up the computer until it can figure out where to go next, and you just keep clicking and you keep feeding yourself more, and of course your body gets confused and then just starts to...
Does it recognize everything that you put in it? You know, it recognizes this and this. All right, but it's not going to necessarily...
for thousands and thousands of years.
Absolutely. We are no different than we were 10,000 years ago. All right, we haven't changed. We're the same. Yeah. But what's available for us right now in the average grocery store, 20,000 items, you only have maybe 100 that are probably have been around, you know, for 10,000 years. The other 19,900.
It's really been within the last 20 years that it's just taken off like skyrocketing. How many choices, how many ways to prepare food, how many flavorings they can add. And so humans just haven't evolved quick enough to catch up with that.
And people are always eating out. And I don't have a problem with eating out from time to time, but my problem is they say, I don't have time to make anything. You've got enough time to go through the drive-thru. You've got enough time to go to a restaurant and sit down and eat. If you've got, you drive by a McDonald's drive-thru or a fast food place, and typical person is probably going to be in line for 15 minutes. You know, by the time they actually make their order, place their order, get their food, and they're out of here. I can pretty much make all of my food in a given day in 25 minutes. And that's the entire day. I'm not talking one meal. I'm talking the entire day.
Well, and it gets easier the more you do it, don't you think?
Absolutely.
I mean, at first it is kind of it's like learning a new language. It's a new routine. But I think the more you do it and the better you feed your body, the more your mind is kind of focused on doing that. And you've freed up the energy to do that. So you see the benefit from it, and therefore you make it more of a priority. So sure, at night, you're kind of tired, you've worked all day, you know, you've got, you know, the kids are to bed, and you just want to get to bed or whichever. But you think, I feel so much better when I do this, that this is just what I'm going to take this 25, 30 minutes right now and prepare it, and then it kind of should work like clockwork after a while. Okay, we've got our mid-morning snack out of the way, and we move on to lunch. We've been talking about lunch. What's an idea, what's an example of a typical lunch? You know, I'll usually have if you get an idea what this is, I don't want to get my big giant butcher knife out the point.
but I usually have some type of organic spinach, and I buy these frozen salmon patties, all right, that I grill up. All right, I usually have one or two.
These are very easy
on
to
myself.
make too.
Very easy. This took me 6 minutes to make from frozen. All right, on my grill. All right, and then I usually have a fat source, which I usually have about a quarter of an avocado a day. This is what an avocado quarter looks like. Then I'll throw on like maybe a half a tomato. Okay, and then I'll put maybe a little dressing on. Usually some type of an olive oil dressing. This is balsamic vinaigrette, organic balsamic vinaigrette that I throw on there too.
Again, with the dressings too, like if you look at the sugar content of a lot of just regular dressings that you'll get off the shelf, there's a lot of sugar on it because of course they're trying to take out the fat. But on this one, your main source of fat here is your soybean oil, and then your balsamic vinegar is the taste of it, the seasoning of it. Your olive oil's in there, and we all know olive oil's good for you. But there's only 3 grams of sugar in this, so this is still tasty and it's still complete as a meal, but you haven't really kicked up the sugar.
Exactly. And a lot of times maybe I'll also, if I want some starches on there, depending on how hungry I am or my energy needs or activity level for the day, maybe I'll throw maybe 20 or 30, not 20 or 30, usually about 15 yam chips. I make these real simple, real simple. You take a yam or a sweet potato, you cut it up, all right? You slice it paper thin like this, okay? You put it on, and I'll use olive oil, or I'll use something like coconut oil. I'll spread it on my pan. I'll put the chips on top. I'll sprinkle some salt, organic sea salt, and pepper on top. Throw it in the oven, 375 for 25 minutes, and I've got a bunch that I keep in Tupperware that I use if I need them, either for my evening meal. That's what they look like, all right? Cold, it's great for a salad, and you're good to go.
Now the coconut oil, I'm sure a lot of people now are going, coconut oil, that's bad, because that's full fat. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Olive oil usually people are cooking with, but it's not as stable under really high heat, and coconut oil is. So
let's talk about stability under high heat as far as olive oil.
You're better at that, but
olive oil is better for sautéing, all right, because of its chemical profile. It breaks down. So, and also the shelf life of a fat like olive oil isn't nearly as long as that of coconut oil. This is what's called coconut oil. It's a tropical oil. People say it's bad. It's a medium chain triglyceride, which means that about 67, 68% of the fat in here cannot be stored as fat. You have to use it for fuel. Your body cannot biochemically use it and store it as a fat on your body, all right? When people say calories in, calories out, you know, a calorie is a calorie, I'd argue that until I'm blue in the face. That's not true. A calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. A gram of sugar is different than a gram of fat. There are different types of sugars, there are different types of fats, just like there are different types of proteins.
Each thing has different purposes in the body, so.
Absolutely.
You know, do you want a quality car to drive you around town, or do you want an old beater that's going to maybe...
Exactly. So a tropical fat, this organic coconut oil, I make eggs like on the weekends a lot. I'll make some omelets, and I use this because it really gives a nice flavor. And again, I'm not going to store this as fat. It's a very good high energy source. It lasts forever. If you buy a small container like this, it's a little more money.
Yeah, it's actually in kind of it's in a solid.
Right.
Get it open. So you don't really have to worry about
this is what it looks like.
It going rancid. It never goes rancid like olive oil does.
Oh, he's going to eat fat.
Oh boy.
I love it.
Yummy. I'll take the yam chips. But then you can just put it in and it melts just like butter would, and it adds a lot of the good fats to something that otherwise would have nothing. So.
Exactly. All right. So you had your afternoon meal, or I usually eat around 2 o'clock. When you whatever works for you as far as your scheduling is concerned. Again, the rule of thumb here is to try to eat something every 3.5 to 4 hours. All right. I've had usually 3 meals by 2 o'clock. My next meal is usually my evening meal that I try to eat right around 6 o'clock at night. What do I eat at night? I usually stick primarily to proteins, and vegetables, and sometimes maybe I'll have a little starch like a yam. I'll go something with like 2 chicken breasts, which each one about the size of the palm of your hand represents about 25 grams of protein. I usually try to get about 50 grams of protein for my evening meal. I'll mix, you can eat vegetables out the wazoo, and vegetables are great. This looks like probably 2 servings. Calorie-wise, this isn't very high. You're only talking about maybe 50, 60 calories, maybe 80 calories max with the mixed vegetables here. And the yams too, low glycemic load, so it's not going to elevate my insulin levels. I put a little actually organic butter on my beans, which is fine. It's about a teaspoon, which again, another 6-7 grams of fat, not a big deal. So that would be another good meal to have, a typical meal. Proteins and vegetables. People are trying to lose weight. You can't go wrong with a protein source, a meat of some sort, and vegetables for your evening meal, all right? Don't load up on potatoes, pasta, rice, starches, because you're not going to need that energy in the evening anyway, all right? You're going to go to bed in a few hours, so you don't need the sugars as an energy source.
Your body needs the protein because, of course, we mentioned earlier, you're
right.
sleeping, you're rebuilding, the tissues, the muscle fiber, all that kind of stuff, especially if you're exercising regularly, right. That's the place to do it, is to get your protein at night.
And usually sometime, not usually, always at night before I go to bed, I'll have another whey protein shake, all right, another 25 grams of protein, and usually maybe a quarter of a cup of yogurt or anywhere between 8 and 6 walnuts or almonds, all right? That's 5 meals in a day. People think, oh, that sounds like a lot of food. It's not a lot of food if you train your body to utilize the calories efficiently throughout the day. It's not a lot of calories because it's not a lot of processed, starchy food, sugary food that's going to make you overeat, and it's going to not do what it's supposed to do for your body. You've got nutrients that are going to sustain your body, nourish it, and give you the energy you need to get through the day. We've got just a little bit of time left here. What do you want to say in closing, Sarah?
Well, I think that, this is a lot of information, and hopefully it helped you a little bit with the confusion, but I would also just recommend highly just to experiment. Don't be afraid of trying a new food. You may find that you love it. It could be anything you need it to be. You just have to put some time in to investigate.
Exactly. Well put. Real quick before we close, we want to introduce our new revised freefitnessvideos.com. We have nearly 200 2-minute videos actually available with virtually any exercise you can conceive of for the human body, all right? I highly, highly, highly advise you to check it out, all right? You want to learn about exercise, if you don't know what to do at home, you can go to this. It's a free service. We ask you for nothing. No money. We don't ask you for your email. We don't track who people are, all right? We put that out there for our client base, and we want to give this information, pass it along to the general viewing public, all right? So check it out. Again, freefitnessvideos.com. It's going to appear at the end of the show. Thanks again for joining me on another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. Sarah, you did a great job. Until next time, I'm your host, Chad Marshak. Hey, Quinn and Riley.